Look into my eyes. Look into my eyes. Hey, it's the Way Forward show. We are here on the Saturday edition, and we are looking forward to some interesting conversation today related to race, politics, and religion. All the things you're not supposed to be talking about, we will be talking about this morning. And so I am broadcasting from the beautiful studios of, I think this is La Quinta Inn in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. So again, it's another one of those Where's Waldo episodes. You never know where I'm going to broadcast from because, well, you never know where I'm going to be. I haven't been posting my shows lately, and so that's maybe the reason why you guys didn't come out last night. I should have posted that show. Raise your hand out there. How many of you guys would have come to Oshkosh if I would have told you and put on Facebook that I was going to be performing in Oshkosh last night? Okay, well, that's maybe why you guys weren't there. But no, a great crowd last night. I appreciated that crowd last night. Folks coming out, folks enjoying music. And it seems like folks had a ton of fun last night. And so a special shout out to Dwelling 222, who's up here in Oshkosh Ministry, that they are doing out of their church concerts, bringing in Christian entertainment, as well as gospel presentation. And so we just brought all of that last night and looking forward to a wonderful show today. If you saw the show notes, then you know that we're going to be delving into some of the questions that we're asking. We kind of got a little interrupted on this Erskin music tour / Way Forward road show thing that we were doing. And so I hope well, actually, let me back up. I know that this is going to be good content. It's just going to take us a couple of weeks to edit it. We've got several interviews, and I think the discussion is going to continue to bring people along. It's okay. We'll hold your hands. And getting the recurring message. All right. I don't know what that means. We're on live stream. What's going on? So there's some people who are watching. If you're watching out there, whether on the Facebook platform or the YouTube platform, I don't believe we have Twitch that's joined us yet on the Saturday edition. But if you guys are out there, just give a shout out. If you can hear me, say amen. So, yeah, I think Jason is coming to the table here. Good morning, Brian. It's good to see your name pop up there. This is the Way Forward show, and I'm going to bring my co-host on. Excuse me. And we're coming in hot today. Jason and I haven't even talked yet, but we're about to. Drink a little bit, bring him in, say what's up to Jason. So, introducing, without further delay, the co-host of the Way Forward show, Jason. Yo.
Morning.
How are you, sir?
Doing all right.
All right. Well, we're coming in hot this morning. I know that we haven't talked, but we spent a couple of days together, so I feel like we talked about a lot of things.
Yeah. We got it taken care of.
Yeah, there'll be no shortage of things to talk about.
No, I was having some computer trouble, so I have no idea what you've been saying.
Hi, Heather. I was just doing the introduction and just signing on from where I'm at today, which is Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
Oshkosh, God's land. I love it. I haven't been back home to Wisconsin in forever. I miss being up there.
I know. You need to get up here. They miss you. Maybe not.
I miss them. How about that? I miss them.
Well, here's the deal. I really like Oshkosh, and I really enjoyed the Dwelling 222 concert that I was at last night. I think that would have been awesome if you would have had a chance to hang out the last couple of days, because you would have got a chance to see a really big corner of my life. You would have got a chance to meet my dad and all of his zany craziness, and kind of check out that environment, and then pop over here to Oshkosh and kind of see what does a typical concert day look like for an Erskin music show. And so you would have seen that in its full glory. And I think we got back about 12:30 last night. And then got up early and got going, show prep and Bible, and let's get going. Yeah. So that's the life of a rock star. Rock star.
Yeah. Rock star. In Wisconsin.
So yeah, man. I put in the show notes today that we were going to talk about those 5 questions, but I feel like you sabotaged me, bro. Those 5 questions weren't questions.
No, I developed questions from the comments. Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed that. I couldn't just read those and that make any sense.
Yeah. Well, when I interviewed Aaron, I gave him the context about Martin Luther King's Birmingham jail letter, and just kind of paraphrase 5 points I took from that letter, and I also utilized a little bit of Ken Magnuson's ethics book because he talks a lot about that whole thing inside of his book. So the questions kind of stem from this nice time spent inside the letter and inside some commentary. So I felt like they could be grounded questions, but however, I should have maybe I should have wrote them out for you because that would have been nice.
That's okay. That's okay. I got a brain. I can figure out how to ask a question. I've been doing this for a while.
You're a bright young man.
So here's the deal, man. I think that interview that I had yesterday was. Can you still hear me?
I can.
Okay. Well, I think it'll come back on. That was one of the best interviews I've ever had. For somebody that's hello.
Oh.
I don't know. It's crazy sometimes. Crazy.
What are you saying for somebody who what?
Hate this camera, man. Hate this camera. Don't ever work right. But for somebody who deals with that sort of thing all the time, Pastor Kimbrough had a lot of encouraging things to say.
Okay.
So good stuff.
That's cool. So are we going to put that together then and see a kind of a picture of Aaron and that pastor and maybe another one?
Yeah, I've got another interview today.
That's cool. That'd be exciting. I'd love to get all three together and just kind of see how it plays out.
Yep. So we're going to edit that. And man, I'm sorry about this camera thing, man. I don't know if it's the technology that I'm rocking, but I definitely
it's that speedy internet.
Speedy hotel internet.
Right. That's right. We should invent a way to speed up just hotel internet. We'd make a killing. That's crazy. Like you go from like 2 areas of the room, like you just like transported from left to right.
I know.
That's good optics.
I can do this.
Yeah, but you actually have light and everything now. Like you have optics and everything. I think we're actually getting pretty high tech.
Yeah, if you're calling this show high tech, then welcome to the new world here.
To be fair, when you were here, I got to watch all the things that you have to do in the middle of a show to make it work, and only somebody with ADD can do what you do behind the scenes.
Yeah, we're on the wheels of steel over here.
You've got 6 different things happening at one time to make this show work. And I just sit in this chair and like, hey, how's it going? You're producing, engineering, and doing all that stuff. So to be fair, your workload's a little harder right now than my load is.
Well, I think that maybe I have ADD and was not diagnosed as such as I look back over my life. And I think that's probably an accurate assessment. Like this feels right to me to be doing about 6 different things. It feels comfortable for my brain. Every once in a while, though, I kind of lock up and I go, I'm supposed to be pressing something, but I don't know which of these 6 buttons I'm supposed to be pressing. But most of the time,
insane.
Yeah, most of the time it feels right.
That makes me insane. It's so funny. I work with kids with that issue because I'm like, my brain's got one file cabinet open and then pull it back. File cabinet open, pull it back. I work with kids who've got 6 different cabinets open from 6 different cabinets and file cabinets, and I'm like, hey, let's put them back and get one at a time. You seem to thrive just in that boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
So
That's kind of my brain activity, my brain pattern, but it's okay. Hey, we spent a lot of time together this week, and well, I would wish that had been more time that we spent together, but we spent some time together, and you shared a little bit about your testimony and background. I think most people who are watching this show know that you're a PhD student and that you're a pastor of a church, but maybe they don't have maybe some background details about. Just give us a quick, maybe like 2 or 3 minute overview of all the different places that you've lived, because you're really approaching this show from a standpoint of having a lot of diversity within the context of your upbringing. And that, I think, helps you to be able to hear some things on this show and be challenged in certain ways. And so just give people a brief overview of that, just to kind of let them know who you are. Let them know who you are.
Well, just I'm actually in the D.Ed program, but it's still a doctorate, I guess. So I got to grow up in the military. My mom is from Mississippi, and my biological dad is from Mississippi. But they got divorced when I was younger, and then my mom met who I would call Dad, Mike, and he was in the Navy. He was a machinist mate, and we moved every year and a half, 2 years, and so I found myself in multiple cultures, communities, different things like that. The military is very diverse. It's actually more diverse than most communities in America, because you talk about, say, like the Black community or the white community or the Asian community. Well, in the military, I mean, it's literally a smorgasbord of everybody.
Yeah.
So it was not uncommon for me to have neighbors who were Filipino, who were Indian, and who were Black, and who were white, coming from all different backgrounds. And so when we talk about a diverse community, I would say the military has been the most diverse community I've ever lived in. And so I got to live in places like Guam for a couple of years, where I was the minority at my school. We went to school. The Navy had an agreement with the Chamorros, and so they built the school outside the base, and we went to school with Chamorro, and that was an experience. And then when I went to school inside of Navy housing, like I said, it was so diverse that rarely was I ever in a all white school. Like, the only time I was in an all white school was when we were in Durham, Wisconsin. That was it. And to me, that was culture shock. Yeah. Like, it took me a while to get adjusted to being in a rural all white school, because I did not approach the world the way they approached it. And
that was interesting when you were telling me that the other day, Jason. That was interesting when you were telling me that the other day, because from your vantage point, even at a younger age, you already were beginning to have culture shock that there wasn't more diversity in certain areas of the country that you were living in.
No, the way I grew up, I just assumed every community was like the one I was in, like anybody else would, right? If I grew up in an all white community, the world's all white, but I didn't. I grew up in this community where we had people from different, not only ethnicities, but just different social makeups, different way they looked at the world, different atheists, Christian, Muslim, all the way to your good old American boy who looked like he came from the Midwest, to the Black guy from the ghetto, to wherever you are from. The military tend to put all these people together and said, y'all got to get along within this context. And I grew up doing that, and then I get to small town America, and it was odd, and they didn't know what to do with me, and I didn't know what to do with them, and so it took a little while to adjust. Once I adjusted, they're sweet people. Like, I love my community. I love Durham, where I graduated from. Of course, it's got its problems, but Hold on a second.
Oh, we can hear you. We just see white Jason, white stream of conscious Jason over there.
Yeah, I don't know what just happened there, but there we go. So anyways, it's giving me a new option to do something that I'm not familiar with.
What's it say?
There we go. I think that'll work.
That wasn't the right button. So Jason's telling a little bit of his story, and I'll tell a little bit of mine until he gets back on here. But essentially, I think it's important for us to recognize as we watch this show and as we participate in this show, all of us, you, and myself included, define reality based on our experience. And for me, I often joke about the fact that the first time that I went into an all-white church, I was rather young, but I still remember that sense of, it was a pleasurable sense, but I remember there being an occasion in which I was saying, I didn't know that this many white people were saved. It wasn't, it just registered in my mind, like all of these white people are saved, I guess, because they're at a church. I had only been used to all black people, and just that was my reference point for what Christianity was. It was just black people, right?
Yeah.
But I knew it was probably more people. I just had never seen all of them clustered together like that. And so it was kind of a shock to my system. I was a pleasant shock to my system. I was glad that God was saving all types of people.
That's hilarious. Because you made me a white kid walking to a black church. What are all these black people doing here? Like,
yeah. They're all black. What's going on around here?
All these black people. Yeah. I never had. It was funny because in my family, I think I was the only one drawn to church activities and stuff. So when we travel around the United States, you can see God's drawing work in my life, because I'd be the one to get up and go to Sunday school. And even that experience was pretty diverse, because it wasn't just all Baptist churches. I think there were some charismatic churches. Any church who would reach out and have a bus ministry or something like that, that's the church I hopped onto, because that's the only way I can get. That's the only way I can get there. And God was using all kinds of people to keep me coming towards His Son. And
I see what God is doing. I see what God is doing in your life. He's getting this thing ready for the way forward.
Yeah. So, yeah. Here's the thing, though, and I gotta be a little careful. But even though I grew up in that diversity, if you want to call it that, this community of ethnicities and people groups and coming together, there was still kind of a standard inside the house that was particularly white.
Yeah, you talked about some of your upbringings.
Yeah. So it's funny how you're kind of told one thing inside the home, and then you have to go out and experience the world, and there is a tension there that you're like, what do I do with that? Because you're kind of told, like, well, you can kind of be friends out there, but don't be bringing anybody home, who's not. So
code words.
Yeah. So that was interesting for me to, looking at like hindsight, I didn't recognize the tension until I got older. And I'm realizing that there's all these definitions and contrasting things that just aren't making sense to me.
Yeah.
The difference between people, you know what I'm saying? How we like to define people. There's white people, and then there's like white trash people. There's black people, and there's the N-word people, and you have to, you can hang out with these people to a certain degree. To a certain degree. And you're like, so I can't marry somebody who's.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up and just say, you kind of see the evangelical version of that when you get to, oh man, we love black people, we love them. We love them to marry your daughter. Well, okay, whoa, hey, hang on. Hang on. What are we talking about here? Like,
I think one of the things we'll see with Coach Aaron is that, and he made a lot of sense to me when he was talking about this is kind of a teaser because we'll get to more of what he said later.
I was going to say, don't give away
like,
what he's saying, because we're going to actually let him say it.
But he gave this idea that things are all well and good as far as doing strength with communities until that community you're with begins to become the majority. Woo. And all of a sudden, wait a minute,
it's coming.
Now it's good. And so I would say, you know what, looking back, like, I mean, it's all well and good until you start crossing certain lines that are closer to home, and you got to really watch those lines if you want to keep the family your family.
I want us to get into these 5 questions here in just a second. And the reason why I want to do the 5 questions today is because my dad asked me yesterday. He's like, "Hey, are you guys just only interviewing pastors?" And I was like, "Well, we're wanting to do key influencers and leaders." And he said, "Well, why don't you interview your mom and other people?" And I was like, "Well, I love my mom, and I love black people and white people. I love all the people. But this is not really a conversation that we're having with the majority of people, because we're trying to have this filter through the lens of people who have leadership responsibilities, who are guiding groups of people in certain directions." And I said, although I would be very willing to have this discussion with anybody, I think that the nature of our show is that we want to have people who have, some leadership capacity there, and responsibility, I should say, to engage in this conversation. And so what I wanted to do on this show, for those of you who are watching, there are 4 or 5 people who are watching right now. I wanted you guys to be able to be a part of the discussion, since we're not going to be airing your interview. And, you may be a key leader or a catalytic leader where you're at. And so that would definitely contribute to the show. But I wanted to do that also here on the show. And so that's why I wanted to get into the 5 questions. But bro, since we had that conversation with Coach Aaron and the conversation that I had yesterday and the one that I'm getting ready to have later on today, I've been quite provocative in some of my conversations with my brothers, especially my white evangelical brothers, and just saying, we're looking at asking the questions from a certain vantage point of what is the responsibility of white pastors. I think, and I could be wrong, Jason, you let me know, that question is going to be less important as we go along, because I think the influence of white pastors in America is declining, and potentially we'll get to a place where that's not the majority voice. That's not the majority, I guess, say the key mover, the key influencer, and the key shaper of the American context and global context. It's not the global context already, but the American context even. And so am I wrong in reading the tea leaves and kind of looking into the future and saying, with everything that you have marshaled against you in terms of the corporatocracy, Black Lives Matter, critical race theory, and all the different educational things that are being put out there, our society is taking a decided turn away from white evangelical leaders. And of course, you guys are going to continue to be faithful, but I think it's going to be extremely difficult for people to hear your voice in the future in any type of substantive way. Am I wrong? What's going on?
No, I think that's spot on. As a matter of fact, even when you and I discussed the show, we even talk about some of the issues that you can bring up versus the issues I can bring up, because my voice just isn't there. I mean, for the pure fact that I'm a white man, and so that's an area I think. Though I would say I didn't. I've in the last 20 years, especially, I've tried to not invite that on myself. It's one that I think white evangelical pastors are going to have to take one on the chin to some degree, and just kind of keep moving, because the same standard to which our previous generations have judged, we will be judged by. And so how we respond to that is going to be massive. Speak to those who will listen, speak truth, speak with compassion and kindness, hold your convictions, but just know that you're not going to have the same platform as the moral majority had in the 80s and the 70s and stuff like that. Your platform, as a matter of fact, my platform, and I'm saying this across the board, not just with race, but with a lot of different people, my platform is really going to wind up being more grassroots.
Yeah.
More in my context, the people I can live with and talk to and interact with and do life with. That's really going to be my biggest. Even if I were to write a best-selling book, I really don't think it'll have the same impact as when I have having somebody in my office or being in their couch or at their dinner table.
Yeah.
And
that's interesting.
You actually might have a better platform.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I want to get into that for just a second. I want to interact with Scott because Scott has a great comment here. I think all the groups have divided ourselves into lines of people, groups that shouldn't cross with regards to people in other groups, and that doesn't make it right, though. And that's an insightful comment from somebody who has a lot of wisdom there in Ferris, Texas. And I had been making this comment to some of my brothers in the ministry is that I think maybe one of the flaws in American evangelicalism, especially as you look at American evangelicalism as maybe like the Holy Post would categorize it, 95% of evangelicals are white. And so primarily when we say evangelicalism, we're talking about white evangelicalism. I think one of the fatal flaws could turn out to be that white leaders have not historically taken the opportunity to understand minority leadership and then put them in positions of authority. It's kind of like, you have an opportunity to use your platform to create an opportunity for somebody else. And I think too many times that platform has been used to say, okay, let's enfranchise other white leaders and let's get people who are like us to be the stage, the speakers at all these conferences and everything. And so now when white leaders have virtually no voice, like nobody wants to listen to white leaders. I'm sorry, I have to say it like that. Now we're looking around. It's like, who are the black leaders that are out there? Larry Elder, Candace Owens. Well, those are more politically minded leaders. And so you get that vantage point, and they're saying some good things. But at the same time, in the evangelicalism, who are the black spiritual leaders that are out there? There's Tony Evans. There's
Michael Young, Eric Mason.
Well, people no, white evangelicals don't like Eric Mason, so you can't put that name in there.
Well, I was just saying in general, black. I wasn't.
Oh yeah, well, okay, yeah. So there's Tony Evans,
Bodie Bachman,
there's Tony Evans,
and there's Tony. There's Tony Evans.
Evans is one of those leaders. But no, I mean, there are more leaders. And what people are starting to realize, especially through a lot of the podcasting and live streaming and alternate methods of people getting information out, TikTok and all the social media platforms, is that the influencers that used to be, those guys are not influencers so much anymore. And so
that is something, Erskin, I think that took evangelicalism by complete surprise. The social media platform, the voice, okay, whether you like it or not, there's a generation who's got a massive voice that whether they should have it or not is irrelevant. The fact is they have it. They have it on TikTok, they have it on Facebook, Instagram, whatever. and kids and people are enthralled with this platform. And some white evangelicals have been good about using that platform and trying to get it out there, but there is a lot that has not really understood or embraced it or tried to fight it. And it is a massive ground because it's global. I mean, it is all over the world. And it's nothing like America's ever seen before. It's not confined to CNN or Fox News or to our border. It's all over. And leadership now has been given to these people who have a massive audience. And it doesn't matter what they do, whether it's sports or fishing or deconstructing, as we've seen with Abraham Piper. I mean, he's got now almost 1 million followers
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's all about using TikTok. He's clever, he's witty, he's charming, he's short, and he is attracting almost 1 million people to watch him literally deconstruct from the faith. And that's a powerful influence. And he's got it, and we don't have that, you know.
Marcia makes a comment here. She's been a guest on the show. Hey, Marcy. People are turning towards certain news hosts instead of church for guidance. Unfortunately, some of the churches got into QAnon. Oh, way to throw that little dig in there at the end. But she does raise a good point. Hi, Marcy. She raises the point that a lot of people are turning to news outlets instead of church outlets because there just aren't. Like, I don't know how this comes across to you, but I feel a sense of obligation. Like, I'm in a hotel room in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and I got in like 1 o'clock in the morning and went to sleep and then got up and started doing some show prep. Like, I'm not doing this because it's convenient. You recognize that I'm doing this out of a sense of obligation. Like, if there's a lack of voices that are out there and a lack of people who are speaking to this, and even I was challenged in just saying we're getting crushed on YouTube. There's millions, almost 1 billion bits of data that are entered into YouTube each day. And if Christians don't come to the playing field, then what takes over is ultimately, like when I'm doing a trip and I see, I'm traveling down the road, you see a sign for McDonald's, you see a sign for Taco Bell, and then you see XXX signs that litter the highway. Well, if there are no other signs out there, nobody else who's vying for that space, then what's going into the hearts and minds of people is, this is a godless and, faithless endeavor. And so I'm just trying to let us get some data bites that are out there. Just so, like you mentioned, Abraham Piper's got over 900,000 followers on TikTok. I checked my TikTok the other day and I've got 22. So it's a drop. But you know what? To God be the glory. If we can just put a drop in the bucket every once in a while, that might change somebody's life or save somebody or change their perspective. And so that I feel like it's worth it even to do that. So thank you for joining me in this endeavor.
Yeah, then this is funny because I'm one of those white evangelicals who doesn't do well on social media. Like this is a foreign country to me. Being in front of a camera and talking like this. I don't have a TikTok. I don't have I got off Facebook because it just all the stuff I've got going on. It was a distraction.
Yeah,
and I've watched it be a distraction to my families. But I'm one of those people who just, wow, this is not my comfort zone. But again, when you and I got together to talk about this out of a sense of obligation, we could always put something forward. I mean, something, and we can ask God to help us work through those, discomforts and get through it. So
I see you. Gideon only had 300.
That's right. That's right.
Oh yeah, we are definitely outnumbered, but we are not outgunned.
That's right.
We are not outmanned.
That's right.
So I
today you wanted to talk a little bit about those questions. Is that what I'm hearing from you? You wanted to
hit everybody up with question number 1.
Okay. So the context of our questions, and I don't want to reiterate too much, but Erskin and I felt like we needed to hear the voices of other people who were doing something similar. Maybe not on YouTube, but they're definitely in a leadership context, and they're trying to make the change and a way forward for churches. And so, as you already said, we were looking at influential leaders and pastors and things like that we know in a circle that we're trying to just connect with in our own network. And so this last week, we got to do an interview in St. Louis with a Lutheran pastor. Erskin got to do one yesterday with a Lutheran pastor up in Milwaukee. You have another one today. And we hope to actually expand this out even across America as Erskin has networked and traveled and gotten to know a lot of folks. So
let freedom ring, baby.
When yesterday actually marked the anniversary of Martin Luther King's letter from the Birmingham jail, April 16th, 1963, where he was talking to white evangelical pastors about the issues that minorities face inside of America. And from that letter, there are 5 salient points that I felt. I texted Erskin this. Oh my goodness, I don't know, sometime a while ago. As I was reading through Ken Magnuson's ethics book, and was making a point about this letter dealing with social issues, and from this I gave him five points that I think were relevant to us, and from those 5 points we made questions. So one of the points that Martin Luther King Jr. makes in his letter is well-intended white evangelicals gloss over the problem. So well-intended white evangelicals tend to gloss over the significance of the issues that minorities are facing inside of America. And so, because remember, they were being critical of Luther's tactics, of what he was doing. Even though he was doing it peacefully, he was still providing some kind of civil unrest, which was making them very uncomfortable and making the whole South uncomfortable, actually making all the United States uncomfortable. And what he was doing was poking the conscience of America to fix something. And these white pastors, though they would say agree with him to a certain degree, did not like the discomfort that it was causing in the cities and places of that nature. And he says, hey, look, you're not understanding the nature of the issues here. You're not seeing the significance, is what I'm gathering from that. So when we started talking about questions about, do we ask some of these pastors, do you feel like white evangelicals are glossing over the issue of racism in America today? Now, what I think is significant about that question is that in the 1960s and 1963, you had a major movement starting to happen, and you saw that there was an obvious problem that needed to be dealt with, and America could see that problem. Here, I think many white evangelicals say racism is not an issue. Like we already dealt with this. It's already 40 or 50 years done. Racism is not an issue. And so Martin Luther King was saying, hey, you're glossing over the problem here. My question is do we feel like it's still being glossed over today? And that was one of my first questions with Coach Aaron. He's an African-American pastor in St. Louis. And obviously Erskin, I think the gentleman you interviewed yesterday was an African-American pastor in Milwaukee.
Yeah, inner city Milwaukee, excuse me.
Yeah. Ain't no joke. Inner city Milwaukee is no joke.
No joke, but he's a principal as well as pastor. And so we've had two categories of people who wear dual hats. And I thought that was interesting because in a lot of the inner city context, pastors are required to wear a variety of hats, as you well know. And in the inner city context, that looks a lot of different ways, from coaching to obviously pastoring, school administration, serving on boards. And so that's just an interesting observation before we even get into what they were saying. So you guys feel free to comment on that, because this is more the general discussion that we want to have with the public. Is I guess Jason and I have been reading some articles that essentially say America is having another great awakening. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, this great awakening is not a spiritual great awakening yet. Yeah. And so we can maybe spend a lot of time, energy, and effort speaking down against the movement and saying people shouldn't be as concerned about it as they are. To me, that feels a little strange, Jason, honestly, as you're asking that question. I'm reprocessing through it, because it feels like a lot of white evangelicals are trying to say, well, no, there's nothing to see here. No, there's nothing good that's going on here. There's nothing we need to be concerned about. Let's all go back to normal. Let's all just, nothing, no fire. No, the house is on fire. And if you hadn't noticed that, your education is changing, your culture is changing, society is changing, and the momentum of that it's like toothpaste. You're not going to be able to squeeze that back in the bottle.
And that awakening is this political, cultural awakening that really has little to do with the gospel, if any, and more to do with this awareness and being woke, as the culture says.
Yeah.
So now the church has got to operate inside of this context. It's not the spiritual awakening we're longing for. It's this now very man-centered, cultural-centered awakening that is going to atone for the sins of people, but it's just not going to go through the cross.
Yeah.
It's going to go through somebody else. And so having a perception of or glossing over the problem is not going to be a way forward for the church. It's not going to happen. And if the black community feels like that's what we're doing, then we're not going to achieve racial reconciliation. That bridge, I guess, is I think Marcy was talking about somebody's talking about building a bridge.
That's Marcia.
But having that bridge is not going to get built, in my opinion.
Yeah. So here's, kind of my take on all of that is that, as evangelicals back in the 80s, when we had the moral majority, back in the 90s, even early 2000s, we used to be able to stick our chest out and exert a type of cultural influence that we now no longer have. From the standpoint of saying, okay, evangelicals can rally around, and I know it's not a perfect analogy here, but evangelicals can rally around Billy Graham. And Billy Graham has the ear of the president, and he has an audience with political leaders in our country. Evangelicalism has these key figures that are entrenched within society who have prominence, they have notoriety, they are invited to speak and to give, cultural assurance at times of need in our society. And slowly but surely, not only have many of those leaders passed away, but also we have a lot of leaders that are embroiled in scandal. If you think about the last year of our lives, one of the largest churches in the world, Hillsong, sexual scandal, Carl Lentz, he's out. One of the largest Christian university, the largest Christian university, Liberty, president, he's out. The largest apologetics ministry, Ravi Zacharias. Oh, that is still a dumpster fire. I mean, you can just go on and on and on and on. So we've lost leaders, and then the leaders that we've had have been sort of exposed.
We've lost integrity. Absolutely. Yeah.
So we've lost our voice. We've lost integrity. We've lost the respect of our culture. And I've said this a lot on my show. Like, we just, as evangelicals, have to recognize the cultural moment that we find ourselves in. We can't stick our chest out and say, okay, well, now we're going to do this campaign, and now we're going to do this million people march, and now we're going to do, because nobody's listening to us anymore. Because we haven't been, I believe, Jason, responding to the very real issue. It's like there's a fire, there's a house that's on fire, and we're going, oh, so what do you guys want to do? Go to the park today, or what do you guys want to do? Let's argue about masks, and let's do all these different things. Like, are we going to address the fact that house is on fire? There might be some people in there that we need to save. Yeah. And I think as evangelicals, yes, glossing over it once again and not taking seriously the responsibility that we have to engage the culture. And you know what? We don't get to set the playing field and say, this is what we want to talk about. The culture's already talking about it. So all we have a choice to do now is to say, we're going to engage in the conversation or not. What are we going to do? Are we going to engage or not? If we're not going to engage, then don't be surprised when we lose more cultural influence. And then we find ourselves in a couple of generations going, how did we get here? And I'm thinking, that's the dumbest question. You know how we got here.
Yeah. I also think that, it's this funny thing, because if when you're talking about having to deal humbly with this and addressing things, I don't think I have to, and this is going to sound crazy, but
talk crazy, because that's what this show is all about.
I don't have to give up being white to engage this conversation. Like, I don't have to be ashamed of being white to engage this conversation. I have to be willing to acknowledge there's some problems, and that I shouldn't glorify whiteness or blackness or whatever. But I'm a Christian man who God has made me. I had no choice in the matter, because I'll be honest with you, if I had my choice in the matter, I would be a 6'3" athletic black man playing for the NFL right now. Because I think it's absolutely amazing to watch what some of those wide receivers and running backs do on the football field. But God says you're going to be a middle-aged, balding, fat white guy who's going to engage in conversations about these issues. And so I feel like the white evangelicals come to this table thinking, well, now I got to stop being white. Oh, I should feel guilty for about being white. No, I don't think that's the answer. White guilt or whatever. There's a phrase for it.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the. I don't think that needs to be my approach. I think what needs to happen is I need to be who I am in Christ. I need to come humbly. I need to be able to listen. I need to take a few shots to the chin. I need to acknowledge the sins that are there, and I need to acknowledge the hope of the gospel for redemption, restoration, reconciliation, and then glorify God, the fact that He's made so many different people with so many different ethnicities and glories. I don't know. Does that sound right, Erskin?
I don't know. Terrence didn't think that sounded right, but no. What I'm essentially saying is I want to piggyback on something.
What is Terrence? What's Terrence got to say about that?
Oh, Terrence, what you got to say about that? Get up on this show. I've been trying to get Terrence on the show for a long time. Terrence would do a fantastic job. But anyway, so type your comments out. Once again, I should say, we have about a 10-second delay between what you hear and like kind of where we're at in the conversation. So by the time you actually give us a response, if the response is not clear to what we responded to, then sometimes it kind of gets lost. And so don't say that, Jason. Don't say that. I don't know what you just said because you said a lot, but don't say that, Jason.
Yeah.
But here's what I wanted to say. I did want to come in for this part of the conversation and say, I am sick and tired of my white brothers feeling intimidated about the fact that they are white. Like that is an annoying thing to me. I feel like the big brother who, somebody's getting picked on. You're like, hang on a second. Let me go handle this. Like, you shouldn't feel guilty about things that you haven't done. If I can educate you and give you an opportunity to respond to some things, then I know you're going to respond to it. Like there's no issue that's there. That you're not trying to hide anything. You're not trying to cover up anything. I know you well enough to know that you will engage the issues when the issues are brought forward to you. Sometimes we mistake people's lack of understanding for a lack of concern. Did you hear what I just said, audience? Sometimes we mistake people's lack of understanding for a lack of concern. Like there are certain things that our white brothers and sisters don't know because they haven't been taught that in school. They haven't ever met. Like I literally had somebody that stayed at my house last week. He said, I can count on my hand the number of black people that I've ever met. Man is in his 30s. He's got 4 kids and he's only met a handful of black people. He was staying at my house and he made an inappropriate race joke. And I had to kind of let him know, don't ever say that again, ever in your life to anyone ever. Don't even think it. But anyway, all that just simply to say that sometimes there's a lack of understanding. Sometimes there's a lack of awareness, a lack of knowledge. Okay, we get that. But that doesn't mean just because somebody doesn't know something, they're automatically like entrenched in a philosophy of we got to get these people and we got to deny these people. No, that's not what's going on there. And so I just wanted to simply say that, Jason, so that you recognize, be white.
Yeah.
Because you're white.
Let me see. Terrence, so wishing to be a black athlete because it'd be cool. Yeah, I'm sorry. I have no problem saying that whatsoever because I think some of the most amazing athletes I've ever watched in my life were Usain Bolt.
Well, just substitute the word cool from good.
Good, awesome. Usain Bolt got
Not just
44 kilometers. Think about this for a second. Usain Bolt got up to 44 kilometers an hour running on the track. That's like half the speed of a cheetah. Like it was awesome. Like I'm like, if I could be that in my flesh, I'm talking about in my flesh, in my worldly manly flesh, I don't want to be a fat, bald white guy. I want to be that. That's amazing. Like his feet were moving so fast. And he does amazing things. And I'm sitting there looking at that. That is absolutely absurd. To watch Jerry Rice catch a pass. I'm dating myself, but I used to marvel at the way Jerry Rice would never get tackled. And I remember hearing it out, like, how do you avoid getting tackled? I don't like getting tackled. So therefore, I ran as fast as I could. I thought
I outran
that
you.
was like that's just common sense. So when I'm saying, Terrence, that like it would be cool, yeah, it would be cool. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with me saying that it would be a cool thing to be that guy, a good thing to be that guy, because I marvel at the athleticism. I marvel at there was another guy. If you want to talk about get out of athletics for a second and start talking about James Earl Jones. If I ever wanted to be an actor, right, I love James Earl Jones's voice. I think he could do anything. The way he talks to me, like, is absolutely profound. If I could have a voice, especially when I get older and I'm talking to my grandkids, if I could have a voice, I want James Earl Jones's voice. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's I don't know what the problem is with me saying it's cool. We are more than sports figures. I know you are, which is why I'm going outside of sports to acting. George Washington Carver, a brilliant man. The missionary Samuel Morris, an amazing figure. Like, so I don't think you're just athletes. I think there are contributions to music, there are contributions to art, there are contributions to technology that if I could pick people to be, I have a whole slew of people that I would model. And I would say 25% of them are Black people. The courage of
Martin Luther King.
well, yeah, no, they called her Moses. Come on,
Harriet Tubman.
Harriet Tubman. I wept at her biography. I thought this 5'1" woman, 100 pounds soaking wet, turned plantations on their head when she kept going back, and she couldn't read, but yet she found her way back, and all she had was this faith, this beautiful faith. And so I look at Harriet Tubman and I say, that is the courage, that is the faith I want. That woman is remarkable. And I look at my daughters and I say, hey, you want to emulate somebody? Emulate that person right there, that person, because that is awesome. So I'm not just talking about sports. I'm not just talking about just this one idea of who they are. Well, I didn't give a chance to say it. You didn't say it at first. I could keep going, right?
It's the Jason Show now. Well,
no, I'm sitting there saying, like, there are many people I look at who I would love to emulate and be like. And they come from all different backgrounds, and I gave you a list of, I don't know, 3 or 4 that had to be African Americans, and both men and women. And
can I jump in for just a second?
Hey, and Terrence, this ain't personal. I like you. I like the way you come at me. So that's not personal. Like, just know that. Like,
Terrence needs to get up on this show.
I like the way he comes at me, but I'm just saying, like, it's not like I'm just picking out, the poster on my wall of Michael Irving being great. That's the only idea I have of a Black man or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Chopping it up. That's what we do on this show. That's what we do. There's a little spark, a little passion today. That last part that Terrence was talking about, and I may have to let you guys talk about this offline, but he was saying that the identification is with all of our greatness, but not our burden and our struggle.
Yeah. I think that's a fair comment. That's why I think for my own walk, for my own life, that's why, like, you and I engage each other the way we do, and we try to seek opportunities to go see things and do things that are outside of what we fit in our bubble. For instance, I think St. Louis was the first taste of more to come.
Yeah.
I think Milwaukee would have been an awesome experience.
Marcy had a good comment here about engaging and learning. And some people don't want to engage in that process of learning, and that makes it a little bit harder. Terrence comes back and says, yeah, we can talk more later about this subject. Oh, I love it. Today, one of my prayers for this show was I was hoping that people would engage in our conversation, because the more people engage, then the more people begin to watch, and the more people watch, the more people get involved in this. But I wanted to go back up to some stuff that Kevin Sherman was saying. Wait a minute, Kevin, what you got going on? What is he saying here? Kevin. Keep watching, Kevin. I'm going to find it. That we can, oh, here's a comment that I wanted to make. We can't be in Christ and also find our identity in our skin color. That's interesting, because God is the one who gives us our ethnicities. And this is really where we begin to break this down. And eschatologically, we begin to look at the fact that there's going to be people from every tribe, tongue, and nation who are involved in this whole process of God culminating history and bringing about the new heaven and the new earth. And so we will never be without our identity as God has created us. And so, Kevin, I just wanted to, I'm not pushing back because there's nothing to push against. I'm just presenting scripture and clarity to just simply say the beauty of this conversation is that you can have a black guy and a white guy who God designed the way that we are for the specific purpose that he intended, for his glory and for the sake of the kingdom. And so I just wanted to just submit that. It's just simply to say, I'm not trying to absolve, I'm not trying to erase or to deny my blackness, nor should Jason try to erase or deny his whiteness. And if you're hearing either of us do that in this conversation, then I would just simply say that there's, you missed the point of our conversation so far. So far.
And I would say, I think what he's speaking to some degree is probably fitting in that idea of, like, you know, you hear people say I'm colorblind, which I think is not the right answer for the church.
We mean well when we say that, though. I know people mean well when they say that. It's just it's a little ignorant.
That's the point. You and I have had good discussions about understanding that Christ accentuates the ethnicity, whatever you are. So I was born white, God knew me that way, and when I became a Christian, he accentuates that in the giftings he gives me, no different than he accentuates your blackness. And he makes, hey, look, watch my glory work through this black man. Watch my glory work through this Asian man. Watch my glory work through this white man. When it all comes together and all the tribes and tongues and nations are singing together, glory to God, you have this display of this beautiful ethnicity. I'm thinking of the Thanksgiving begins with a C. Come on, Erskin, help me out.
I'm sorry. I was filtering through the comments. My ADD brain was at 6 different things.
Anyways, it's like this. We call it a rainbow, call it whatever you want, but you call it this beautiful sea of ethnicity in front of God, of all these different colors and ethnicities and people praising Christ. And I think that's something that's being missed from the conversation in evangelicalism is this idea we don't have to be colorblind. We can actually enjoy that aspect of ethnicity inside of our lives. We don't have to be ashamed of it. We'd have to be mindful of the issues and some of the problems we're dealing with, but we don't have to be ashamed of it. And what is Christ going to do to redeem it and to make it glorious? So that would be my
and I wanted to jump in here as well and say that we're also looking at a subject matter in which, when we begin to try to communicate with one another, we need to understand how we're processing life and processing information, because the way that you process some things and the way that I will process some things will be completely different. And that, you know, people keep coming back to the fact that we have different conversations with our kids. We have different things. I mean, classic example. Last week I had 2 conferences. I was in Louisville last week and I was also in Gatlinburg, and then traveling up here. Well, I've started to, you can see how white my teeth are. See how white my teeth are? That's amazing. But I've started to brush my teeth and then brush my teeth with baking soda, because, you know, that's kind of a natural remedy to get whiter teeth, because I'll be smiling at you guys all the time. But anyway, I had it in a bag, and I had it in my toiletry bag. And I was talking to my wife about the fact that if I get stopped, I wonder if, you know, police would go through my car and think that this is cocaine. And in the conversation I was having with Kelly was essentially, she said, don't worry, don't overreact. If you get stopped, just, you know that it's not, you know that you haven't done anything. So these are the kind of conversations that we are having. Like, this is not like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. These are conversations that we have all the time. I expect at some point, I'm driving through little towns in Wisconsin. I expect at some point somebody might look and say, you know what? There's no black people in this town, and that guy's black. So we're just going to stop him and check out what it is that he's doing. Whether that's right or wrong, I just, in my mind, I'm processing information, and I'm always looking around. I'm making sure, driving the speed limit, making sure I have all of my stuff in order. You even said something to me the other day about, why you drive so slow, bro? And I'm like, listen, I want no interaction with the police. I know I feel like it's not going to turn out poorly because I have my identification, I have my registration, everything is in order, insurance, whatever we need. But I do not want an interaction with the police. I do not, as a black man in this country. I want everything to be in order. There's no reason why you should stop me because I'm speeding. There's no reason the tail light's not out. None of that. Nothing. I do not want. You could be the nicest police officer in the world, but I do not want to be stopped. And so I'm processing life through this lens because, Jason, what happened in Virginia this last week or in December?
Just absolute foolishness. The lieutenant in the Army was pulled over by a couple police officers, and one of the police officers got particularly aggressive, and even though the lieutenant, African American Army serviceman, was fully cooperating, hands out, keeping his voice down, not giving any kind of trouble, still got pepper sprayed, still got messed with, still got. It was absurd to watch what happened with that police stop. Yeah. It was, and the guns were drawn. I mean, it was it was crazy. This guy couldn't have done anything. I don't know if this guy could have done anything more besides maybe just get out of the car right away. But frankly, I'm not sure I would have if I were him either, because I would have been scared to death the way those guys are coming down. So, yeah, he was insane.
You know, I've told people before, you you could do everything right in some situations and still come out to be the bad guy, because the first thing that people default to is, you know, like in Dante Wright, well, you shouldn't have tried to get back in the car. He shouldn't have. And yes, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. There are certain things that people should not do. Unfortunately, the lens that people are looking through is there is an intimidation that the police have and have had since the war on drugs, whatever that is, war on crime here in America, and just over policing in some categories and in some ways that, you know, it does not always turn out the way that you think it would turn out in some of these situations. And that's an important part to consider. And I think that I had made the comment back when George Floyd was killed. You know, people wanted to bring up his record and some of the things that he had done in the past, and maybe he was resisting and he, you know, wrote a bad check or, you know, different things. There was some reason why the outcome happened the way that it was, to absolve the police officers or make it to seem as though he was a criminal. And I said, I think at some point I will have to be walking out of my house, going to get the mail, and then just get gunned down because people hate black people, for some people to actually realize that there is a problem in our country, so that people couldn't say, well, no, he was out there doing this, or he would, you know, all the narratives that we have to excuse the fact that we need to have this conversation. Well, evangelicals, listen up, get your face in the screen. Whether you want to have this conversation or not, our culture is having this conversation. They're having it over and over and over again. They're just having it poorly because Christ has not been introduced to the conversation, and because we are not putting our best foot forward, locking arms together and recognizing that diversity and the multiplicity of Asian voices, African-American voices, Latinx voices, white voices, all of us locking arms together is a stronger and more unified argument than what our culture can make. But we're not doing it. We're not doing it.
Yeah, which is why we can't gloss over.
Yeah.
Can't gloss over. We gotta engage.
We are not going to get through all 5 of these questions today.
Actually, I think honestly we should take one by one every week, because I think the next question deals with
I got you, Kevin.
Moral injustice, and I think that would be that'd be a great conversation to have. But no, the whole idea of we can't go into too much more. But I would say over the next 4 weeks, one of our strategies is to talk about these questions, because these are going to be big. These are going to be questions we're asking these pastors, these leaders, and it'd be great to interact. I love the interaction we've had today with this question. I'm just seeing Marcia and Kevin and Terrence engage. So I think they've got something to say, you know? Absolutely.
So thanks, Kevin. Thanks for the clarification there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think That's part of what we get a chance to do. And I know it's a little bit harder if you're viewing this and you're like, hey, I got to type all this information, then I got to wait for the delay, and then I got to wait for from you to read it and then actually comment on it. But hey, we really do appreciate you guys endeavoring to work through these issues with us with a measure of clarity and transparency. And I think that one of the hallmarks of where the conversation can go, one of the beauties of it is that if we're humble, if we're transparent, if we try to seek clear communication, clear understanding, being willing to engage. Like I like the repartee that you and Terrence had. I kind of sat back there and I was like, I want to jump in, but then there's another part of it. Like, I want you guys to actually work through the process of, okay, what did you say? Did you mean to say what you said? Okay, here's what I meant by what I said, and here's where that might be a little bit flawed, and here's how I'm hearing that. All beautiful stuff. And so if you are just popping into this episode, you want to go back and watch the entirety of it on YouTube, we are working this thing out. We are working the way forward as we're doing the show. So we have a plan, we have a strategy, we're interviewing people, but hopefully we've been gracious in our interactions today. Thank you guys for your contribution to the show. This has been one of the best. Like, I've looked at all the people who've been viewing this, and you guys keep it coming.
Yeah, I love it. Actually, what's been neat is to interact with I've been wanting to meet Terrence for a while. We're in the same state. I believe he's in Chicago. So we just got to hook up at some point.
Chicago.
I got to meet Marcy.
That's the same state.
Is it really? Yeah, that's a episode all by itself. All by itself. That's a hot debate right now in Illinois.
Did I really do that at the end of the show? Is Chicago and Litchfield still in the same state of Illinois?
That's right. Oh man, yeah. You get some luck. So
you see what Marcy said?
Extreme right groups. That is.
She said, "How you guys gonna get your ratings up on this one?"
Yeah, right. Here's my Marcy. That's a really good question because I wrestled with that. On the one hand, of course, if you want to interact with people you disagree with and you want to give them a fair share at things, but the Bible also says you don't answer a fool, the foolishness. And some of the stuff I'm seeing coming out of there is just absolutely foolish that you just kind of throw your hands up like we're not even in the same sphere right now. Because what needs to happen with the dialogue is two people need to come together with the agreement. We're not going to leave the table, and we want a reasonable solution forward. And I'm not sure left or right, okay, is really wanting a reasonable way forward. I think they get a kick out of firing rockets at each other, and so I wrestle with that because that seems to be the mantra of both sides. We're not going to actually deal with the issue. We're just going to have talking points, and we're going to fire our shots at each other, and we're just going to keep firing until somebody dies. And I got to teach my kids at Tame the Vine that don't work. Like somebody's got to be willing to do it. On the other hand, you've got to correct foolishness, and you got to deal with it. So that's what I'm feeling when I hear that comment. Like, yeah, I get what you're saying. We should interview some crazies, and the truth will make its way out. I just don't want to legitimize that they're actually talking right. So I don't know, Erskin, you might have a different perspective on that, but
I was reading some of the comments and one that I put up on the screen. Brother Scott Bourne making the comment there, and I totally missed what you were saying because I was reading this and processing it. It's because all the good information is coming out the end of the show. And man, so right and left wing extremists on the show called The Way Forward. How do we process that? I'm thinking about that. How many right wing extremists do you know? Because I don't know a lot of them.
I don't know.
I do know a couple.
I don't know. I don't roll with those folks. Yeah.
I don't roll with those folks. Well, we'll come up with something because I do know a couple of them.
Hey, we always invite people to the show. So if QAnon is listening, I guess, come on. Or
there you go. Get in contact with us. Let us know.
Black Lives Matter groups.
Conspiracy theories on this show.
Yeah. So I don't know. Marcia, I love the idea. I love that you put it out there, and I love the boldness of it. I just wrestle with the foolishness that comes when nobody wants to actually seek the truth. I wrestle with that in my own office. If I'm sitting between it with trying to talk to somebody and they just refuse to acknowledge some kind of truth or somebody, I'm just like, all right, we ain't going anywhere. This is bogus.
So here's a thought, Brother Scott Bourne. I think that there's maybe a confusion of categories. And here's where I want to challenge you, Scott Bourne, and others who see Scott Bourne's. I left it up here for a purpose. I left it up there on purpose because there's many people who are reading this comment and they're saying, that's absolutely right. You do the biblical thing and you get down on your hands and knees, and the police officer says, you just do it because you don't want to have any interaction. That's the biblical way. Let me just put this out there as a thought to you. There's a matter of perspective here that I think we are missing. And that is the ideal biblical pattern of what should be right and what could be right will not be achieved until we as God's people stand as intercessors in the midst of the situation. And what I mean by that is I can speak all day long about what people should have done, how they should respond, and I could look at non-believers and I could tell them, you know what, you should do what the Bible says. What? They're not believers, and so they're not doing anything that God says. They're doing what they want to do. And so all of a sudden, if I just want to alienate myself from non-believers, I can say, well, you know what? Here it is. The Bible, it says, do this. And so you as a non-believer, you do it, or I'm going to just smash it in your face, this Bible and this word, and I'm going to tell you, do what God's word says, and no bad things will happen to you. Well, that's moralism. What I'm asking you to do, Scott Bourne, and I'm coming at you a little hard. Sorry about that. I'm asking you and other people to do is to say, you know what? I don't see non-believers responding the way that they should respond. And so maybe I should begin mentoring some of the younger people that are coming up so that they can respond and have some positive examples. Maybe I can start a mentorship program. Maybe I can engage in a mentorship program that's out there. I think Jason is absolutely right when he says, you know what? It's going to be confined to a more localized, what are we doing on the ground level, engaging in these issues? Because we can talk all day long. But who are the people that we're discipling? Who are the young men that we're picking up on and I say this to you, knowing that for years you've picked people up on the church bus, you've taken people to various spiritual events. And so you're doing the work of mentoring, but I'm saying that's what it's going to require, instead of us just sitting back and saying, well, you know what, that person should have done that, just politicizing these whole things. Let's actually get our boots on the ground. Let's actually begin to engage in people's lives. Let's get into schools where they'll allow us. Let's get into these places in society where they'll allow us, and let's begin to actually mentor and to show people the way that they should go, not just sit back and tell people, you know what, you should have done this. Nope, you should have done this. You should have done this, and they're going to do this. Like, I got that. We got that. Everybody knows what they would have, could have, should have done. I want to see some actual believers who are out there put boots on the ground.
One of the things we want to do with the way forward, not just the way forward, but the Team Divine, we take a lot of these kids who have a lot of interaction with the police officers. So just about every one of my kids has had interaction with the local police, and it's usually not a very pleasant experience because somebody's getting arrested or mom and dad's going to jail or something's happening. So one of the things we want to do with our program is build a relationship with the police department where the kids have interaction with the police officers out before they come to the house. And they can see interaction where a positive, hey, let's talk, let's dialogue. I know your name, you know my name, that kind of thing, and begin to educate the kiddos about what the law is. At the same time, see that these are fathers, these are husbands. They don't want, like, I had a conversation with a young man who just believes cops hate him. That's just, it's what he believes. And the reason is because he has a home life where the cops are there quite often, and usually somebody's getting arrested for a warrant or something. And I told him, I said, no, I actually know a police officer who knows you by name, who actually likes you a lot and looks out for you, and I even go so far as prays for you. He's like, what? And I said, do I know him? I said, yeah, you know him. I said, you know him. He's in our neighborhood, and so he had no clue. And I think part of that mentoring and discipling is taking kids like that who have these crazy experiences, get them with these police officers where they have good experiences, developing relationship, so that when things go down, that can help them understand, hey, look, I don't have to always be fearful or crazy. One of the things I make a comment about what Scott said, I don't know if he watched the video or not, but one of the things the guy said was, I'm scared to get out of the car right now. Like, he told him calmly, like, I don't want to get out of the car right now. And I can tell you why, because both guns were drawn at him and he didn't understand what was going on. And I think if the cops could de-escalated that and gave some more dialogue, that probably wouldn't have gone the way it went. So I know there's two thoughts there, but I just wanted to comment. My first thought was what Scott said, just get out of the car. But then when you hear him talk, he's like, I am scared to death to get out of this car right now. And he had good reason to be. I mean, he had really good reason to be.
Yeah. So there's so much good content. It's like you guys are finally waking up. Mike B, man, go back and watch it from the beginning, man. We were chopping it up, man. This is good stuff. But, oh, man, Gary and Linda Beam, are you watching this? I'm just going to come full transparency. Gary and Linda Beam, if you're out there, if you're one of the people who's watching this right now, I just want to give a shout out because I lived in Austin, Texas at a particular time in my life. I had very little supervision. I had a single parent mom who was trying to raise me, and she was very absentee. I had no father in my life at the time. I got in trouble all the time. I was in fights, continually getting suspended from school. It was Gary and Linda Beam who asked me to start playing basketball on their team. I couldn't even make it to half the practices because I didn't have transportation. I didn't have any support group at the time, and I didn't have any direction at the time. Well, they began to pick me up and get me involved in sports. I began to take a liking to sports. I began to find some positive things. That's why Jason and I talk about sports. We talked about it the other day, Jason. The reason why we talk about sports is because sports has given us so much perspective in our lives and given us the opportunity to engage in many different relationships we would not otherwise have had without sports. But I'll just say to Gary and Linda Beam, if you're out there, you may not be watching this today, who instead of saying, and listen, Gary gave me Candace Owens' book Blackout. Like he's the one who introduced me to Rush Limbaugh. He is the one who started a business and had me work for him and said, you need to listen to Rush Limbaugh. Listen to Rush Limbaugh every day. I became a political conservative. I became a fiscal conservative. I began to see family values in a new light. But it wasn't because he handed me a book. It was because all of those years before, I worked for him when I graduated from college for a summer before I went to Africa. But all of those years before, the reason why I was reading and doing the things that he was talking about is because he's the coach that picked me up for basketball practice when I had no male figures in my life who were positive. I had my mom had a boyfriend who used to beat the crap out of me at the time. I was mad and pissed off at the world. And you know what? I was getting in trouble. I was getting suspended from school. I could have easily been a statistic, but somebody cared enough to pick my rear end up and take me to basketball practice. So fast forward, the college education that I received from East Tennessee State University, go Bucks, is a direct result of the fact that somebody cared enough to put boots on the ground. Don't sidestep the question that I'm presenting to you, Scott. There are some perspectives that perhaps you're missing, and I respect your opinion. I respect your viewpoint. But if you're not willing, you yourself, to put your boots on the ground, if you're a Christian and you're watching this show and you yourself are not willing to put your boots on the ground, then let me ask you the question, not just about society and politics and what one should not have done. Let me ask you the question about what kind of actual relationship that you have with Jesus Christ, because faith without works is dead. And I'm watching people, and I can remember people who have done the work, who have put the things in place so that I can embrace the value, embrace the truth. Now, if we're just willing to just overshoot people and say, you know what, they should just embrace the truth without willing to do the hard work, then shame on us.
Okay. Amen. Amen. Amen.
I just felt like I had to say that because maybe people don't know who I am. They look at Erskin music and they're like, hey, you've got everything together. You're, politically conservative to some extent and family values, biblical truth, and like everything looks good. I just want to just get raw for a second and just let you guys know where I came from. I could have easily been a statistic. I could have easily been someone that was kicked. I was kicked out of school. I was kicked out of school to the point where they said the school district before my junior high year said, you cannot come back to this school. And you know what I had? I had 5 white families who said, what if we do this? What if we let him rotate from our houses, house to house to house to house to house, until he finishes the school year, and then he's going to go to another school somewhere else? And they said, well, that will be a reasonable plan. Not my black mother who wanted me to stay in school, but 5 white families who came and said he can stay with us and we'll take responsibility for him. So I just want to keep it real on this show. Full disclosure. We all have perspectives that we come from. Sometimes we miss some things. Sometimes we're a little bit, push and pull. But I just wanted to be upfront with you guys and just be honest with you guys and just say, I got a perspective that I think needs to be put out there. And I want to say and use this platform to say, Jason, thank you for the fact that you're going to get off this call and you're going to go to a soccer game with a kid that's not even your kid, because this kid needs some influence in his life. He may end up playing professional soccer. That kid is that fast. I cannot believe how fast that kid is. And so you're doing the exact same things that Gary and Linda Beam did for me when I was a young lad.
Yeah, and I know nothing about soccer.
That's even better. It'll be an even better story.
I coached football in Texas. We didn't watch soccer, so yeah, I'm getting to learn it now. So,
bro, we got to go.
Yeah,
I'm supposed to go to lunch here. I got another meeting to go to.
All right.
One more comment. What are we saying here?
I'm sorry. I was reading thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Jason, I'm just going to let that sit there.
Yeah.
Because if we're talking apples to apples, then I apologize. If there's not a disparity between policing in America in the sense of interactions with black people and white people, then I apologize. I must have missed something in this whole conversation. But I can tell you from the meeting that I had with police chiefs all around the country the other day, the emergency meeting that we had, because I'm part of the Justice Circle in Nashville, that perspective is not known to hardly anybody in the country. Now, I'm not minimizing the fact that you have experienced some difficulty and some suffering, Scott. Not minimizing that at all. I don't think anybody should be intimidated or brutalized or whatever by the police. I'm just simply saying there are a million, as recorded by the Act Now Commission, points of interaction in the United States of America each day between law enforcement and the community. The overwhelming majority of that interaction is minorities in our country.
Yeah.
And sometimes it goes well, and then sometimes it does not. All right, this is the way forward, bro. I'm late for a meeting, of course. Right. But this has been a good episode. Thank you guys for joining. Mike B, go back and watch the whole episode. Jason, I'll give you the final word, and then we'll get out of here.
I think what you said was outstanding. The way forward is trust the Lord with all your heart, lean on your understanding, and all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make that path straight. And that's what we want to do here in the way forward.
Amen.